Hey, this is Kahja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. We are back! Season 4 of the As Told By podcast. Hey, As Told By podcast listeners, we are back. It's been a minute since I have recorded an episode, so I am so happy to be back at Stay Diff Studios. Shout out to Stay Diff for their support of the As Told By podcast, and we actually have a sponsor this season, so shout out to Two Chef Coupe of Harlem, New York for sponsoring this season of the As Told By podcast. I'm ready to jump in. I have a guest today. I'm so glad to be talking to them because, you know, I've gotten to know them a little bit on IG, super interested in their story and what they do. So I'll give them an intro. Born and raised in the Bay Area, graduate of UC Berkeley and USC with a master's degree in broadcast journalism, a 10-plus year career working as the food and drink editor for SF Gate. Today, I'm talking with award-winning journalist and deputy editor for Eater SF, covering the restaurant, bar, and pop-up scene in the East Bay, Dianne de Guzman.
Hi.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad we get to sit down and do this.
I know. I'm so excited to chat, especially like we, had such a great conversation last time.
We did. We met as IG friends.
We did. I never know if it's corny to like message people or like reply to stories, but I just like connecting with people that way and getting to know people through their lives and stuff on Instagram.
Look, half the people I know here, half the people, I'm a transplant, so a lot of the people I know here I met through Instagram.
Yeah, fair.
They turned into real people in real life. But yeah, thanks for coming out and talking to me. I think as interested as I am in food, I'm always mesmerized by people who get to do the things I pay to do, as a job. This is great. So I'm like, yeah, I need to talk to her. Let's see, how did this come about? So I know that you are a Bay Area native, which means, of course, you grew up surrounded by culture and food. Did you always have an understanding of the connection between food and the culture of people and places?
I think that's something that I somewhat came into. My parents were immigrants from the Philippines, and so I grew up with a lot of like home cooked Filipino food and also a lot of, I would say, some fast food, some local fast food places. But I think there reached a point where I kind of wanted to start exploring more. So I became very interested in food, like Thai restaurants and things like that, and started really expanding past, what I initially grew up with. I don't think it's always inherent that you're going to be always interested in those things, but it really kind of grabbed me at a younger age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Filipino culture, for the people listening who don't live in the Bay Area, Filipino culture is huge here. I certainly was exposed to it.
I mean, it's such a big part of the Bay Area. I know it's like one of the biggest areas that Filipinos immigrate to here in the United States. And so it's pervasive everywhere, especially as like Filipino Americans growing up here, like across the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
There's also like, I would say like Filipino family parties are also near and dear to my heart. We got the barbecue, we've got lumpia, we've got, everything laid out. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's good. Get you some Filipino friends, not just for the food, but if you have some, definitely the food is great.
Oh, the food is a big part of the culture. That's for sure.
Yes. So your job is to eat at all the amazing restaurants, big and small, and essentially to report back. So tell us how you got so lucky and what your path to this career was.
Ooh, that is a big question. I mean, the thing is, there was no direct path, and we've talked about this before, but I think that ultimately that's what makes it so interesting to kind of finally land here, right? In my previous life, I almost worked in law. Like, I used to work at a law firm, and I thought, becoming a lawyer was like my way to go. Mm-hmm. I also, at one point, did think I was going to go into film. That's all. So I had really kind of ran the gamut of things I thought I wanted to go into. But at its base, though, I really enjoyed writing. And the food part didn't really come in until later. And especially even in those early years of like being a reporter, you know, I was really starting to try to feel out what I was interested in. Like I worked in tech. I did some what they call public safety reporting, which is really going out into the field, being a cub reporter, going to fires and, you know, things like that. And what I kind of redirected myself to every time was kind of food. It was always been kind of just a general interest. I really enjoyed doing dinner parties and things like that. And as I started really becoming more cognizant of, you know, a quote unquote career, you know, I didn't really want to be chasing, you know, fire engines everywhere. You know, I really started thinking about what really kind of holds my interest. And it's, you know, ultimately has always been food. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of, I don't want to say weaselly moves on my end, but I would always wind up pitching food stories when I was a general assignment reporter. And so, you know, kind of basically putting out there that this was my basic interest. Sure, I'll, you know, write that court story or go to a community meeting, but at the same time, you know, if I
know you want to hear about that prop, but let me pitch this to you as well.
No, but I would pitch stories on like food trucks and things like that. And as I started slowly getting those clips together, I really, you know, before there was a food section at SF Gate, I would always really be, you know, kind of on the side going, hey, if you guys start a food section, I'd love to really lead it. Both, you know, overtly and not so overtly in those ways. And, you know, kind of really position myself to like get in that space by like slowly working on clips and doing things in that manner. And then, you know, after 5 years at SF Gate, I wound up taking a break from there and then moving on to Eater SF, which is just more of what I really love to do, which is, you know, writing about restaurants and pop-ups and talking to chefs about techniques and things like that. And it's been really fun. I still really enjoy it, which is a good sign, I think, for me.
What's not to enjoy? But that's, you know, that's a path from law to possibly film to public safety. That was a big jump.
It was a big jump. I just wanted to get back into really reporting. And so I took what I could. You know, you got to take those opportunities and make them chances for something else.
Okay. Here's to jumping on out there. So now you have this career as a food journalist. So help me and the listeners. How does this work? So do you get to pick where you go? Do you get it assigned to you? Do they know you're coming? Are you like the mystery shopper who's there and they don't know you're in the corner? Like there are key things that you have to hit when you go there, or are you just there really to have your own experience, have your own perspective, and then report out on that?
I think that it happens in a variety of ways. I mean, I think as a reporter, there's no getting around being assigned things, but I think it's also about finding what you're interested in those assignments, I guess. And then, you know, I'm also always on the lookout for new restaurants, so I'm also pitching things. That's maybe not the best answer. I guess it's all of the above, but, you know, it's all about really finding an interesting space and a nugget of information that really kind of makes it, to use an editor term, really makes it sing, right? It's about like really kind of finding like the nuggets that really make this restaurant unique, or what's this chef's point of view, or things like that. In terms of visiting restaurants as a secret shopper, you know, quote unquote, so to speak, I don't really do that much. I mean, I do jokingly say I do that, but it's really more, and I'm going to say it, a me problem. And it's really just more because I'm trying to figure out what this pop-up's about, like, or restaurant, whatever, however it kind of came on my radar. And then I'm trying to kind of determine whether I really enjoy the food. Like, what is really cool about it? What is really cool about the chef? Like, what do I enjoy about it? Without the kind of space of being under this pressure of, I have to write about this place.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, for me, a moment of discovery outside of those, assignments I get or whatever. So sometimes I'll, sneak into a pop-up. I've been caught though by the chef. They've like found,
there she goes over
yeah,
there.
they'll drop by and say hi, and I'll be a little embarrassed. But it's really more for the sake of, just kind of forming my own opinion and not being beholden to, someone or something to write about. But normally, every place I've gone to has really I've found something that stood out. And so there's, I would say, less than a handful of places I've really like swatted down a story in that sense. So I usually just don't want outside things to influence that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
And it's I like that answer. I don't know if people remember back in season 1, at the end of season 1, I talked about the fact that I was a mystery shopper for a period of time.
Oh, really?
It's very strange to go somewhere and try to purchase services while looking like you're not purchasing services, like you're covertly taking notes and, making a lot of shifty eye contact. I'm like, you go to a restaurant, you sit there and you're like, and what were the specials today? Like making sure they don't miss anything. But it sounds like you just kind of you go with the flow, and you're really there to kind of talk about what's cool and interesting and unique and different about the place and the people associated with it.
Yeah. I think also like mystery shopping and mystery dining is a little bit easier these days because everyone looks like they're texting. I'll usually look like I'm texting on my phone. And I'm usually just taking notes so I don't forget things. It's never like anything nefarious I'm typing in. It's more like, oh, this dish had some like little nice bits of salt and dorky food, things like that.
And people are all taking pictures. I guess you can do it now and just look like John Q. Diner.
Yeah. I think it's much easier these days to kind of slide under the radar that
all right,
way.
y'all. If you're looking for a second job, hit up the mystery shopper. I could tell you.
I want to ask you so many questions about that.
I mystery shopped for funeral homes.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
For $5 a shop.
Wait, but what is shopping at? What does that entail? Like
you call the funeral home and you act like you are pricing a burial or a cremation. You walk through. They give you the scenario. You walk through the whole scenario, and you want to make sure the person is hitting certain points they're supposed to hit. So you like have a sheet of what they're supposed to be telling you.
Okay.
And you need to make sure they told me this, they told me that. They only told me some of this. They didn't give me that. They were supposed to offer this, but I had to prompt them. All those little things. And then you fill out a whole form on the back end of what happened and didn't happen, and you submit it, and there's your $5.
Oh, interesting. Is this for like a chain, or is this like an outside consultant agent? Sorry.
Outside consulting agency.
Oh, interesting.
That I guess they just consult with or contract with funeral home providers across the country. So yeah, it was a quick way to raise money. I think in 6 months I was able to get quite a bit of money.
Oh no, that's
that.
great.
Yeah,
I mean, well,
the hustle.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do. Part of the story how I ended up in the Bay Area. But through your work, you've gotten to meet and talk with many of the chefs and restaurateurs in the Bay. What are some of we think we know, well, I won't say we think we know, but we look and we think we have an idea of what makes a restaurant successful or a restaurateur successful. But I mean, unless you're in it, you really couldn't know. But to the best of your knowledge, what are some commonalities you've observed in the ones that have had long-term success?
Ooh, that's a big question. I mean, and, I've seen the gamut of things that can make a restaurant not successful, right? Walkability, sometimes, it's not the right fit for a neighborhood. But that aside, location and things like that aside, I think the most successful restaurants are ones where it feels like the chef has a point of view. And I mean that as in, the menu's really tight. It doesn't feel like there are throw-ons that are kind of playing to, a certain type of audience. The restaurants that strike me the most, I think, are the ones that have a personality, have a point of view that is really solidified and clear. And we always have these like tropes of the food world that recession-proof pizza parlors and things like that. But beyond that, I think just, somebody who's really thinking through what food they want to offer, really thinking about the diner in terms of like what they want to show them. I think that's what can make a restaurant really special and, really imbue it with something that's different versus another X type of restaurant.
Another grass wall and a neon sign.
No, exactly. And, and then the other side that I have kind of found to be really interesting too is that I think restaurants that really care deeply for their employees and really kind of do sort of a working kitchen where they're not looking to retain staff in terms of talent, but also looking for talent to grow in their kitchens. And I think that that's like, it's not a surefire way to success, I think, but it shows something on behalf of the chef and having a caring personality in that sense that also imbues the restaurant in a different way and makes it more, besides the health and vitality of the restaurant and the food itself, it shows like a good culture that people can grow in.
Yes, absolutely. When you say that, I think of one of my favorites in Alameda. I wonder, should I say their name?
You should. If you love them, you should always share it.
Saran Kitchen.
Okay.
In Alameda. One of the things that I have noticed every single time I've been there is I can tell there's a real focus on them training their staff in traditional hospitality practices.
Yeah.
Like you can see it in the way the staff is approaching the table, the way they're serving the dishes, the way the menu is being presented to you at the table. I love it. The service aspect, the food is great. The drinks are great. But the service and the focus on hospitality is equally as great. So good job over there, Saran Kitchen.
It's really all about care. And I think that imbues it more, or the restaurant more, in a way than like putting the forks in certain ways or making sure the sommelier is whatever, introducing the bottles. I mean, that's always nice, but when you feel someone enjoys working at that restaurant, if you feel like the employees are learning something there, that gives them stake, that gives you stake in the restaurant and you wanting them to really like succeed and take off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I love when restaurants have like a chef's counter where you can see, right? The inner workings of the kitchen. I think you get to know a lot about the profile of the food and the profile of the chef.
Yeah, yeah. And you can tell all sorts of things about how the staff works and moves together. And I think that, that's what, again, makes a restaurant sing, I guess.
Yes. Shout out to Amtrak in the background. If you live in Oakland, that gives you a good indicator about whereabouts we located. How do you handle having to write reviews when you hate... look, I have a perspective on this. I'm going to let you answer first.
Okay, I want to hear you answer this.
How do you handle writing a review when you hated the food or the restaurant or both?
Okay. Well, first off, I should say, technically, I'm not a reviewer. I honestly would worry if I'm a food reviewer. And I always say that, jokingly and not jokingly, because, I think as reviewers, there's something to be said about really understanding the food and culture and things that go into a specific place that I feel like I'm still learning. So reviews are off the table. I try not to review places.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like me not liking a food and restaurant, I think I try to approach that in like a couple different ways. I mean, I try to recognize when a place is good, but not for me. There's a difference between like something that I'm personally not interested in, and I recognize that there's like a community or, a place that it really fits. And, whether that works for me or not, that's like, out of my hands. Or I don't want to say out of my hands, but, it's serves a purpose. And whether that reaches me or not, like I don't decide on not doing a story based on that.
Yeah.
Because I recognize that there's just some things that I will never understand and that, it's all about me learning. Maybe it's a me thing. Maybe I should learn to embrace bitter melon. I still haven't done that yet. I will get there eventually. Today's not the day. Yeah. But and then the other thing is, in terms of like the negative restaurant experiences, I always think maybe it was that day, maybe the server is having an off day. But, you know, there's been so few restaurants that I've canceled a story on or have just, like, it would take so much for me to not do a restaurant review. And, you know, when I do, you know, swat something down, you know, I can think of like less than 3 times I've done that.
Okay.
There's usually something more deep-seated than what I've witnessed or seen at the restaurant that has nothing to do with me and is more, I'll take a stance of, I want to step back.
Y'all got some stuff going on in here.
You guys have some stuff going on that's not having anything to do with me. I'll try to politely voice my concerns if I'm asked why, but otherwise I try not to really do anything that's super negative, especially given the platform that I have. There's just no reason for it unless, you know, it's something really important, like there are legal issues with the restaurant or, you know, that gets more into the harder news side of food reporting, which is not even a review of the food. It's more of an indictment of the owners usually.
Yes, because a lot of times you're exactly correct. There's the owners. Yeah. And then there are the people, right, who are working in the restaurant and preparing the food. And a lot of times there is a wide space between the two. Yeah.
And that also brings up another point is sometimes the staff is not even involved with the issues of a restaurant. And there are a lot of people that I feel like can be hurt by that. And I try not to really put people in that harm's way.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That actually, you know, that brings me perfectly to my next question, because I always feel conflicted. So let me take a step back. So for those of you who listen to the podcast, you may also follow me at Hey Kay in the Bay, where I am around at a lot of food spaces, particularly in the East Bay, sharing my opinions and my experiences that I'm having with food here in Oakland and beyond. And I always feel conflicted about just how authentic to be if I really didn't enjoy a dining experience. First of all, because food is a very subjective thing, right? Yes. You hate it. Yes. I love it. You know, the people there felt so about it. Yeah. But, you know, also given how difficult it's been for brick and mortar restaurants to sustain themselves throughout the pandemic, you know, I always don't, you know, I want to say what's true without slamming. I think there's a fine line. And then there's been some places I've gone and I just really did not like it. And in those situations, I just did not post it at all. I deleted the footage and it was like it never happened. But what do you think is the true value to readers of sharing negative reviews of a restaurant? Or do you think there is any real value in that?
I think there is some value. I think it has to be very carefully done. And I think what you're exposing has to be balanced with why you're exposing it, if that makes sense. Like, you know, if it's a dish where you're like, it's terrible, you know, blah, 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 you can give some reasons. I mean, that's different than, you know, a larger issue. Or if you're really more trying to warn people about some inconsistencies or some issues. I mean, everybody has kind of their takes on what they want to post, or, you know, even on a larger scale, if you're working for a publication, you know, why you're posting something negative. Like, I mean, I would say before the pandemic, there was sort of a economy of really being down on restaurants for fun. Right. I think very famously, I'm thinking of Pete Wells' review of like a Guy Fieri restaurant in Times Square. Right. There was a kind of mean point in journalism, in food journalism particularly, where it would take some restaurants and let them be punching bags. And to be quite honest, you know, like, it was fun at the time, you know, you have like, you know, it's funny. It's almost like a writing exercise for the writer, right? You know, it's kind of low hanging fruit to do something like that. I think in these days, especially with the pandemic and with the struggles that a restaurant has done, there is still some value in being negative, but I think it has to be done in a more thoughtful way. It has to be useful for the reader. There has to be a reason for doing it. And to just do it just to, do it for clout, it's just, that doesn't sit well with me. And so I rarely will talk poorly of a place or even post about a place if I don't feel good about it, because at the end, I think what people more are looking for are places to go rather than not to go.
Right.
And so that's how I've approached it. And I mean, if you take me out to drinks, I'll tell you the places that I'm not a fan of. But I mean, I like to try to keep that offline as much as possible.
Absolutely. I've seen some restaurants here get a hit piece, and I'm just like, well, damn.
Yeah.
Did you fight somebody there? Did somebody there sleep with your wife? I'm just like, oh, wow, you really came for their throat.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's that thing. Sometimes it feels like a vanity piece more for the writer, for them to be clever. And if I feel like that's what's happening, it definitely gets a head shake from me. I don't like that. I mean, I'm a writer. I love cool, witty turns of phrases. It's what we do. But I mean, to just kind of rip apart a restaurant, it still doesn't feel like the time to do it unless there's a specific reason for it.
Yeah. And find out for yourself. I never go by food reviews. Yeah. I almost never go on Yelp. I only go to look at the photos. Mm-hmm. Even then, I don't do that a lot. And, I may ask someone about if they've been or what their experience is, but I never go by that because it's such a highly subjective thing. And I want to go have my own experience.
Yeah. I mean, even if I think the thing with negative reviews, even negative Yelp reviews, it's really more, it should always be taken with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. I think people should decide what negative parts are for them and what aren't. I go to Yelp to look at negative reviews, and see how bad it can be. More
the spectrum.
The spectrum. I mean, and you can also always really tell if a bad review is more about the person than the restaurant or the food. And there are a lot of excusable things in bad reviews too.
Yeah.
Staff may be low that day, and whatever, this reviewer is gonna say something out of pocket and say stuff that really doesn't typify the restaurant itself. So you have to really dig into reviews to find out what your personal takeaway is, and it always boils down to you should try it for yourself. And listen, I love doing this. Go and don't even look at the menu. I think we got so acclimated to looking at the menu beforehand. I love to go places and don't even see the menu until I'm sitting at the table in the restaurant, because I feel like I am discovering it in real time versus researching it. Now, I don't have any food allergies, I don't have to screen out certain things. I eat most proteins, so I'm pretty, food agnostic. But I love the wonder of that. Look, I take my fun where I can get it, Dianne. Yeah, I think we're missing a lot of, I do it as a profession, so I'm always looking at menus before I arrive. But, when I can't, I think we just see too many food photos sometimes and we get distracted, and it's hard to really have that experience of discovering a menu these days.
I tell you, don't rob yourself of the joy of dining out. To that point of food photos, as a food journalist, I'd love to know what, I'm going to ask you this and then I'm going to contextualize it.
Okay.
I would love to know what you think about the advent of food content creators and how they have been change agents, or if they've been change agents for the way traditional food journalism works. Now, one could say that I was a food content creator or a food influencer.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of that term, and I'm going to tell you why.
Oh, I'd love to hear this.
Because we're all grown people. Mm-hmm. I either can't or shouldn't be able to influence you to do shit. This is your money. This is your food. You're eating it. I'm not. So I can tell you that I had an experience, and I can say I liked it, or, I didn't like it so much. Yeah. But that should just be a piece of information, not to influence. So I don't like the term influencer.
Yeah.
Content creator, I'm okay with. I prefer food enthusiast because I think that really captures it. Like, I'm enthusiastic about it. So this is what I'm out doing and I'm sharing it in case you maybe feel like you want to do it too, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
So I know that sometimes it can feel like, do I want to say circumventing? I don't know if I want to say circumventing or competing or parallel parking right up against food journalism. But there is a big difference between going into a restaurant, taking a bunch of pictures, with your wine in your hand and writing a caption, and food journalism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's a big question. I mean, and it's somewhat hard for me to answer because I guess I'm part of the more traditional food journalism circles. And to be quite honest, I have a love-hate relationship with quote unquote food content or content creators. I think the part that I really love about content creators in that realm of food journalism is that they're not beholden to anyone. What I really like about the content creators is their ability to really drum up interest in hole in the walls that don't get that much press, even from places like us or any other, traditional media spaces, right? And they're not beholden to a big media company or page views and things like that I think traditional media is concerned with, which gives them such a wide playing field and just really a chance to unearth some, I don't know, to use the tired phrase, hidden gems. Right? And so I like the discoverability in that way. But the hate part is what I think content creators have always been derided for, which is, charging for space on their social media pages, things like that, demanding food. But that is with anybody or anything that anybody demands things, right? So maybe that's not specific to content creators. But the other part of the hate is that I think it also really takes people out of the food experience. I mean, it cultivates a food experience for people who are seeing it, on Instagram or TikTok or things like that. But I'm talking about the in real life person-to-person experience of running into a content creator in the wild and having a bright light shined on the table while they're taking photos and videos of everything, kind of taking other diners out of that experience. And also not that I spend hours worrying about food content creators, but I think it also takes a lot of enjoyability out of the experience for them as well. They're not really ever, how often are content creators really enjoying a meal and looking at the menu and talking to somebody versus really trying to make sure it's content throughout dinner. So I feel that also, I feel there's I would guess that there's less enjoyment out of eating for those people, and that feels sad for me. I don't know, maybe that's not the case, and I hope that's not the case, but I think there are some detriments to content creation that hasn't really been worked out yet.
Look, I'm split. I'm split because clearly I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm split.
We're all taking food photos and
food photos.
Videos.
I try to pack as much. Sometimes I run out of character space, but I try to pack as much info in the caption as possible because. Yes, it's fine to just take your pictures and it was great and this and that and you should go. But what do I know about the culture of that food? What do I know about the chef? What do I know about if it's a new restaurant? What inspired it? A little bit about the backstory about how the restaurant came to be. And so I find myself having these long captions, even though I know damn good people do not read. It's a rare person that's going to, I learned that the hard way. People don't read. But it's a rare person, you know, I think, who's going to go in, or just a person who's really invested in the subject matter, who's going to go in and kind of sift through those 6 mini paragraphs that I have under there about what I thought was really special, just beyond the food. But I mean, that whole business, when I see, and I've said this to a few of my friends who have small restaurants or, you know, food pop-up businesses, don't give these content creators no freaking free ass food. When I see you have on your thing DN for race, I'm not paying you shit. And see, to me, this is the difference. Like, let me get my soapbox for like 2 seconds. I swear I'm gonna get right back.
I'll follow that up.
I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second. I really do enjoy the aspect of this where it is helping to give light and life to small businesses. When I see a lot of the businesses that I found during 2020 who were pop-ups, who are now either in brick and mortar spaces or en route to, so Gumbo Social, Hella Bagels, Delirama, you know, all these places that I found that, what's the other one? With the R, vegan. Roasted and Raw, who was just like a window pop up in Jack London. And, you know, now they have a whole space on 14th Street. Yeah. I feel like that is a lot of what I'm in it for. And so when you see people bust their ass to get to where they are, and then you think you're supposed to come in here and get free food, as much as we all know food costs, you're going to come in here and get free food just so you can post it to your followers, who, if you have 20,000, okay, what percentage of those saw it? And out of that percentage that saw it, how many of them are actually going to go to the restaurant? So you don't even really have any data analytics behind why this person is helped by you giving them free food. So it's like you ain't really in it for any real reason. You're just kind of trying to big yourself up, and I don't like it. I just think it's a poor look. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think there's a time and place for it, and I think that there is somewhat of an economy where it is helpful to restaurants. I think it's more terrible in bad form when you're demanding things versus, you know, like arranging a time to, you know, make videos and things like that. But, you know, it should all, I mean, in an ideal world, right, it should be all about, you know, promoting a restaurant that is, you know, usually mom and pop or whatever it is, and introducing people to it. It's that discoverability. And I think that, you know, content creators should be aware of what they're promising as well, and be upfront in terms of what the feedback and return will be on it. And, you know, I've learned about places through food influencers, so I get it. I think, you know, it's great in terms of that, but when you're doing it at the detriment of a restaurant and not really considering who you're working with, and you're really just, you know, on autopilot, right? Boom, you know, a 2-minute video on, you know, a 20,000 person platform.
2 minutes, 90 seconds you got with a reel. That's why people are talking like, blah, 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 blah.
I know. Okay.
You're trying to squeeze that thing in there, huh?
I'm very old. Maybe it's 2 minutes was like pre-Instagram, but, you know, those 90-second reels, you know, I think there should be some consideration as to, like, you know, who the restaurant is, you know, thinking about those chefs and really tailoring your content creation to those folks versus, you know, let's say a place that can afford to throw money at you versus, you know, a small little tiny cafe restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you have to gauge, can you sustain the hit?
Yeah.
Like I was in New York recently, and I had banana pudding from a very famous purveyor of banana pudding in New York, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind saying it because y'all are in mail subscription. Like I could get this in the mail nationwide. My little ass
but
review.
Should we though? Should we get this through the mail?
I wouldn't. There's better places to get banana pudding if you want some. But I'm like, well, you could take the hit. Is it even a hit? I'm like, I didn't like it.
Is it even? Yeah. Is it even a hit? But like, you know, but you know what you intrinsically know which places can take a little bit of criticism versus something that would ruin a small place, you know? Yep. And knowing the difference to me is, I guess, what would separate good content creators from bad ones.
Everything is not to be said online.
Everything is not meant to be said online.
Some of that stuff, you keep it to yourself. Especially, I find in the Bay Area, it's not a huge community. So, watch where you step. But, when in thinking about kind of the longer term impacts to businesses, Bay Area food businesses, right now, probably the most I've seen since I've been here, they're being heavily impacted by this recent wave of property crime. What do you think are some of the downstream effects or some of the solutions for the restaurant business overall?
Ooh, that is some big questions, and I wish I had the answers to them. I mean, every day I see lots of Instagram stories of, people finding their windows broken and, front doors busted open and things like that. If I had the solution, man, I would not be doing this. I'd be yelling it in the streets, trying to, help out those restaurants. But I think, with anything, there's strength in numbers. It's not really a true solution, but I think just the community that these businesses have built up amongst themselves and with their customers is really what will drive the change. And I think that right now there's just like some places that are really struggling to get those crowds in there because of like just the wave of crime that's happening in different areas. And I know of some like restaurants that are really trying to figure out what those steps are. And God, I really wish them luck. I think really talking to, local leaders and really looking at what change would be for, these restaurants is really what will make things happen. I know that was so vague. I just, it's really such a wide ranging problems. It's, economics, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. And, I just, not to be very kumbaya or anything, but, I really wish this would be more of a time of recuperation from the pandemic versus, like the latest, capital L latest thing that restaurants are dealing with. But, I think there's a lot of determination amongst restaurateurs and chefs that I think really just speaks to resilience. Yeah. And leaning into the community, right? Yeah. To keep going. Yeah. And I think that it's a relationship, right, between a restaurant and its customers. And it's also, it's not just on the restaurants to band together and pull themselves up. I think it's partially the customers to really support those places that are hurting and to speak up when, there are rallies to support places like, whatever the mom and pop space around the corner that they really care about. It's showing up in a lot of different ways, whether that's through dollars or through just being there. That's what a community is, know? Yeah. Well, I'm glad that folks are doing their best to stick it out. Because, I would imagine they could pack up and go, in other, to other places. That would be glad to have, the cuisine. But I'm glad that they're fighting through it to stay here in Oakland. Yeah. And that really speaks to the real danger, right? Which is these places leaving such like a vibrant neighborhood or region to go elsewhere. And to be quite honest, it's very tempting to want to pack up and move to, I don't know, wherever you think crime doesn't. I was going to say Walnut Creek. The 680 corridor, right? The 680. Crime happens everywhere, but does. I think though it feels appealing, and I think there have been moments where a lot of restaurateurs want to have the easy, not quote unquote easy time of not rolling up to your restaurant with broken windows and things like that. But I think there has to be a lot of kudos given to those people who stay and really want to build up the neighborhood and really, be pillars for their community and, be, that beacon, that place is a beacon where people want to go to. Yep. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? Do you want to hear my jokey canned answer?
Yeah, and then the real one.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. My jokey canned answer every time I am up against deadline or am just real worn down is that I always joke that I would go move into the woods and make furniture or ceramics. Something very hands-on.
Yeah.
Something that's more like hands-on and not, so mired in, I don't know, wrestling with words.
Wrestling with words.
I don't, but in actuality, I don't know what I'd be doing. I mean, I just enjoy this so much, and I haven't really gone past like what I would do past food journalism. So,
well, that's great. If your plan A is working out, work it.
Oh no, this was plan DEF. This is not. This was nothing I even really like imagined was possible. So, I mean, I hope it can only go up from here. Yeah. Whatever that next thing is.
Well, here's to making a career out of doing something you love. Yes. Okay, look, so I have to ask you now.
Okay.
Right? I must.
Okay.
Who is on Ask a Food Journalist? I feel like I needed an announcement for that section. But who is on your top 3 list of if you haven't eaten here yet, you should?
Okay.
Get your pens out, y'all.
Okay. So you mentioned that this was a possibility that you would ask me this, so I had to jot 3 things down because this list shifts so much. It depends on where the moon and the sun align,
Where we are retrograde on the day, all the things.
Things like that. But so the 3 that I thought of when you mentioned it, I'm just going to rattle off. And I'll also add on a few little notes. They're all in the East Bay.
Okay.
Which is very me, I guess, since I grew up in the East Bay.
It's me as well. And I didn't grow up in the East Bay, but I live here, and that's where I like to eat primarily.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I still like going in the city, but okay. So my 3 right now, as of when this podcast is being recorded, I really love Soba Ichi in Oakland. Is one. Viridian, also downtown Oakland, another favorite, and Bardavel in North Berkeley. Which
what's the third one?
Bardavel in North Berkeley. I mean, that's kind of that's a very selfish restaurant thing for me to name because it's right in my neighborhood.
But I go down the street and around the corner.
But I go there so much, and it's just really enjoyable seasonal food. And I mean, we're so spoiled here. Everything is seasonal, right?
Yes.
Practically the fast food places are seasonal.
High end. Is that an early girl tomato on my In-N-Out burger?
Yeah. Market driven, seasonal.
Artisan.
Artisan. Yes. But they just do it in such a way that's really comforting, non-obtrusive, not annoying. That sounds like a dig. It's really not. But and they also have a really great natural wine bar nights called Bar Sardine. And so really, really great wine selection, laid back vibes, which I really enjoy. It's a place to get coffee. It's a place to get desserts. You can get a little sandwich. They also, the best tomato tartines ever. There's a whole cult around it. If I can, once Bardavel posts that they're doing tomato season sandwiches, I forget. I think there's a name for it, but there's a lot of people who will run. So it's a good spot that I really just lean on a lot.
I haven't heard of any of the
really?
Viridian I've heard of, but I haven't been to any of the 3 of these. So I need to get on it now.
Okay, we're gonna go.
I need to get it. We need to get on it.
Yeah. The reason why I named Viridian is it's a mix of young Asian Americans who opened up this bar restaurant. I don't know. The line's very blurred these days, but they have such really amazing innovative drinks and an amazing innovative food menu that really kind of plays on nostalgia for the Asian community. So for instance, they have cocktails that's modeled after the White Rabbit candy. dessert dishes. Although this was more when Vince Bogtung was running the dessert menu, but I still remember there was like an ice cream dish that really like layered in like kumquats in there and candied lychees. I want to say I might be off, but and then Kevin's just, you know, the chef there is doing some really cool things with like dried wings or dry spiced wings, for instance, and the menu shifts a bunch. So like you'll go there one quarter, it's one thing. You go there like a few months later, it's a different thing, but it's still like a really cool vibe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to go.
Oh.
Like, say less.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, okay, I'll go with you if you want to come.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to try it out. I think the 3 on my list right now where I have heard great things and I have not been there yet. Definitely one is the Wolf.
Okay.
I have not been there. Well, I'll give a split, right? The Wolf is one I've heard really great things about and haven't been. Yeah. One where I've been, so this is, if you have not been yet, you should go, Mama Oakland. I think it is flying under people's radar.
People have been telling me about Mama in Oakland.
I mean, even if you don't stick with the price fixed menu, which even if you do, you are winning with the price fixed menu, the starter, the entree, and I think it's the dessert. Yeah, for $40, Psst, easy. Yeah. But then they have add-ons that you can throw on there. I mean, I have not had a bad meal there ever.
Oh yeah, no, I heard the prefix menu is like the way to go. Like everyone's told me, like my friend Michelle told me, like this is an amazing bargain, and the food, I still need to go. Like there's still so many lists. Like if you take a look at my Google map with all the pins that I have of places I still need to go to, like I've had someone tell me my map gives them anxiety looking at the place, and I'm like, you're telling me I just do it so that I can figure out like where I need to go to depending on my current location. So I'll be in downtown Oakland. I'll be like, what haven't I been to yet? I'll pull up my map. But otherwise, it's like,
got to organize. Keep a list.
It feels not organized. It's like organized chaos.
As long as you can find your way there, you're good.
I'm finding my way somehow, but you know, my Instagram bio literally says we'll take bar and food recs. That is for sure. Like DM me. It's nuts. I will try to get back to you, but I love food recommendations.
Send her the recs if you got them. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to me today. Thank you for kicking off the 4th season of the As Told by podcast with me today.
Oh, it's an honor. I can't believe I'm the first for this season.
You are the first. So really happy to be back. Looking forward to next episode. If you want to keep up with me in the meantime, you can find me at either Kahja versus Kahja. That's KAHJA_VS_KAHJA. Or look, new development. You can find me and the food content. If you're like, girl, I don't want to talk to you, but let me see the food. You can find that at AK in the Bay, both on Instagram. Looking forward to next episode. And it's been great being back. See you soon.
Welcome back.
Hey, peace.